Hey guys, this is Brian from thetruthaboutwatches.com. I'm sure some of you that have been following my reviews for a while are probably wondering why it took me so long to get to the Orange Monster, and the truth is, just was trying to think for a long time what I was going to say about this watch. It's so well known on the internet. Just going to spin it up here. Trying to think of what I could say that would give some people some insight that really have already read a lot about it. So I'm going to try to cover some of the more minute features, as everybody's pretty familiar right now with just the general status of this watch. It's almost a legend in the watch industry, as far as especially online it is. You can see there the 7S26 movement's very smooth. 21,000 beats per hour, which is slow compared to Swiss watches, but it's an extremely smooth movement. It tracks well, no stuttering, no stopping, no skipping. The crown is screw down at the 4 o'clock position. It's a non-hacking movement, so if you're really into accuracy, not into the looks, it's probably going to make you angry. Let's check the bezel out real quick. I'm not sure if you can even hear that on the camera. There you go. The bezel is fairly loose, although like most Seikos, as soon as you get this puppy underwater, the bezel becomes harder to turn. I'm not sure how they've managed to work that out, but it does work. So underwater it is more difficult to manipulate. See here, the crown has a guard, the bezel has a guard that finishes with the crown guard. Goes all the way around the bottom of that. It's an unsigned crown, which is a little strange. I thought Seiko would have surely put their logo on there, but I did buy this with the bracelets, the stock Seiko bracelet. It's an awesome bracelet, one of the best ones I've ever worn. I'd say it's probably the most comfortable metal bracelet I've ever had. Seiko does use the dual button deployant with a flip over. And just like Orient, you can see here, Seiko has a nice little spring bar built in there. Makes them just another winner in my book. I love that little spring bar. I'm sure you guys are sick of hearing about it by now. Here is the case back, screw down, and the Monster is water resist to 200 meters, which is, way beyond most of my diving skills anyways, but the crown and the case back contribute to that, I'm sure. The other thing to note about this bracelet, they're pretty cheap, and they have solid end links, if you can see that right there. And just Seiko has truly, there's a reason why this watch is a legend. The design, the character of the watch, and just the features that you get for the price are just unbelievable. One of the best metal bracelets in the market, or in the world as far as I'm concerned. I've tried on a lot of metal bracelets. This is by far the most comfortable. A reliable, accurate, automatic, and you can usually get these for $150. If you don't have one of these in your collection, you're crazy. A black or an orange you gotta have. If nothing else, you can even buy a Seiko 5 Sports. They also use a 7S26. Now you won't be able to see in here, but I'm going to try to make a point. On the bottom of the dial right here, which you're just not going to be able to see at all, it says Movement Malaysia. A lot of people have been asking, I'll try to make a real brief rundown. Seiko sources out the movements to other Seiko factories that are not in Japan. There's one in Malaysia and one in Singapore, and there's probably some other places. The reason some dials say Malaysia or Singapore and some dials say nothing at all is because of the whole thing with the gray market. Watches that are intended to be sold in the United States must have the country of origin marked on the dial for the movement. That's why this one says Malaysia. This watch was meant to be sold in the United States, and they had to mark it. I've got a couple other watches that were purchased from Hong Kong ADs that were shipped to the United States, and the dials don't say anything. It's just a little quirk with Seikos. Some people think that the ones that aren't marked have a higher collector's value. I'd say that's all in the eye of the beholder. Just realized I've had this pretty far from the camera the whole time, so it might have been a little blurry. Apologize for that. This has the same thing as the SNDA. The bezel lines up with the notches in the case. Pretty cool. The case here, see if I can get this on my wrist for you. This watch is probably perfectly sized for me. I would say I don't really wear watches too much bigger than this, other than the Russian Diver. This is the size I generally like to wear. This watch is really heavy for how big it is. I have a couple other ones that are this size that are nowhere near as heavy, so I'm not sure what materials Seiko has used, but it worked. Whatever they were going for, it worked. By the way, the clasp is signed. The Seiko there. Pretty cool. And let's get the lume. I know you're all waiting for that. The lume is probably the best part of any Seiko watch, and the Orange Monster is no exception. I have said before, and I'll continue to say in every review that I make, this is the watch that all their watches are judged by. Seiko has the market cornered on illumination paint, or excuse me, couldn't get the word out on. Wow, sorry about that, guys. On luminous paint, couldn't get it out. So as long as they continue to have the patent on Superluminova, or Lumibright as they call it, it's just it's a lose-lose situation for every other watch manufacturer. We'll kill the lights here and show you why the Monster is famous. And it almost wiped the lens out there for a second. That charge right there will hold this at this level of brightness for the next 2 hours, no problem. If I were to let this run for about 5 minutes solid on the LED, this would glow like this for about 8 hours all night. The Monster, again, just is the standard that Lume is judged by. There really is nothing better. Get the lights back. Again, this does use the 7S26, and you can see even in just mediocre darkness, the watch still shines. Just perfect Lume. The 7S26 has been pretty accurate. Seiko lists it as 28 to 30 seconds a day variation. I would be a little upset if mine was off by that much. This watch has tended around 12 to 16 seconds, which is a little bit high for me, but I just love it so much I don't even want to risk taking the back off to regulate it. There's not too much else to say about this watch. Obviously, you probably know a lot about it if you're coming to check out this review, but this, again, this needs to be in everybody's collection. There's no excuse for not owning this watch. The day and date automatic just make it really worth whatever price you have to pay for it. I feel like someday these are going to be collector's watches when Seiko stops making them. I've got 2 now. I'll probably have 5 or 6 by the time that happens, and I'll just have a couple sitting in cases in perfect condition. One thing I do want to show you that a lot of people have commented on, just a interesting feature, I'm not sure if it was intentional or not. Oops, I'm changing the date there. When the hands line up, you get this really cool rocket ship. And I'm going to hit the Lume again just so I can show you what I'm talking about. Pop the lights. Get a really cool rocket ship. And again, I don't know if Seiko really intended for that to happen or not, but it's one of those things that people notice, and every once in a while when the hands cross and I'm looking down at the watch, I just, I get a smile on my face. It's pretty cool. So that's about it for the Orange Monster. There's not a whole lot more to say. It's just a great watch, and if you don't have one, it's right now's no time like the present. Go pick one up. So that's it for today, and I will see you guys tomorrow.